Welcome to a special episode of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week is Jeandra LeBeauf of BadCulture.net, as well as Gayle Falkenthal of Communities Digital News. How you doing, ladies?
Hello.
Doing great. You? And
doing good. I'm doing
we
good.
have
I've been talking
special
about
guests for the show. If you watch, you might see Michael Jackson or Billie Jean make an appearance, and we'll explain later.
Absolutely.
Hey, there's Michael. Yeah.
They're all going to do the show. Michael and Baymax, they all want to do the show tonight.
Absolutely. After talking about this for months, having this all-women's episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report is happening right now. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a live YouTube show / blog / podcast that discusses all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, there's one main place you can go. You can go to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the site. On the blog page, you will find articles and videos posted up by yours truly, as well as special contributor KBC Live, Kayla M. Lewis on Twitter. If you look to the right of the page, you will also find links to where to find us all over social media. On Facebook, on G+. We got 2 G+ pages, one for the show and one where I do the news and whatnot, as well as share blog stuff. We also got pages on YouTube, on Podomatic, where you can find all episodes of Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. Got a Tumblr page, Twitter handle, at P4P Boxing Report on Twitter. We got a pictures board, RSS feed where you subscribe to, Stitcher Radio where you can check out the show, be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Check the Pound for Pound Boxing Report on Stitcher Radio. That's POUND, the number 4, POUND Boxing Report. Check us out there. Leave a review. Tell us how we're doing with the show, how we can improve. Also, the email for the show, p4pboxingrpt@gmail.com. To repeat that, p4pboxingrpt@gmail.com. Lastly, you got a link to where you can donate your account. Again, be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account. Donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. I'm going to repeat that, donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. What happens is, should you donate to a Twitter account, any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account will be able to retweet, have the ability to retweet all tweets that come from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. Now, with that being said, with those homework issues out the way, let me shut my mouth, let me get out the way. And Jeandra, Gayle, the show is yours.
Thank you
and I
very
may chime
much.
in, and I'm going to say I may chime in, and there will be some questions for you ladies, and I will ask them throughout the show.
Yes.
Sounds good to us. Excellent. Well, we got a lot to talk about. There's always a lot to talk about when you're looking back, looking forward. It's a question of, what's most important. Well, why not? Let's start with the fights this past weekend. We had yet another Al Heyman special, the first one on CBS in the afternoon, and it was the much-awaited fight between Adonis Stevenson and Sakio Bika as the main event. And I didn't think we were going to see the co-main, but we did, which turned out to be a fairly dandy little fight with the light heavyweight prospect Artur Beterbiev. So, Jeandra, did you watch? Did you see it live? Did you see it later? What did you think?
I did. I watched it live. I was very surprised at how improved Beterbiev. We'll start with the undercard. I was a little impressed with Beterbiev because I wasn't in his last performance. He looked so unsure of his footing. He looked a little uncoordinated. Power good, but lots of guys look great against mediocre talent. But he just completely mollywopped Gabriel Campillo. Was pathetic. Well, I mean, it was just sad to see Gabe Campillo get taken out and down that way. He got his head snapped back like a Pez dispenser, and Beterbiev looked great. I think the announcing team was a little bit premature saying he's ready for a title shot. I know that's a new trend that these new guys, get a couple of good fights and immediately fight for the title, but I was impressed with his performance. He looked significantly better than he did in the first one. What did you think?
I absolutely agree. Campillo is no pushover. I mean, yeah, he's kind of becoming a professional opponent at this point with his record, but he is a really good test, and he has fought fighters whose pedigree we know, so he's a really good measuring stick for fighters on their way up at this point. And boy, he did take a lot of punishment. I mean, he really he hung in there longer than I thought he would, but finally it just had to be stopped. And Beterbiev did a nice job, but yeah, you know, yes, he's had 8 fights. Yes, they've all been knockouts, but come on, 8 fights? This guy is not Lomachenko. He needs some more seasoning. You know, and that division has become very competitive. So the last thing he wants to do is get in the ring, you know, 2 months from now with Sergey Kovalev or even Jean Pascal. Not a chance. He's got plenty of time. He needs to exercise a little patience. Al Heyman will get him more fights, get him more exposure, and he needs to take a deep breath. But he's well worth watching. And it was a great little bit of exposure for him to the American audience. I would bet 95% of whom are watching are seeing him for the first time.
Right, absolutely. And in the middle of the day, you know, his last fight was on HBO. Kovalev, of course, the champion, the greatest of the division, largely accepted as the greatest light heavyweight currently in the division. Kovalev, you've got Stevenson, you've got Weisthuizen. We'll talk about him a little bit. You've got Najib Mohammadi. You know, there's a lot going on in the light heavyweight division. Now with Adonis Stevenson, switching over now to Adonis Stevenson, do you think that he is... Well, let's talk about Adonis Stevenson's fight. What did you think of his fight against Sakio Bika? For those who are not as familiar with Sakio Bika, he was previously campaigning as a super middleweight and moved up in weight to face Adonis Stevenson. Both are Al Heyman fighters. I think Al Heyman was a little light in his light heavyweight stable, so he needed some opposition for Stevenson to keep the money in the house, if you will. So you've got this fight with Sakio Bika, who recently lost the title to Anthony Durrell at super middleweight, and, you know, goes down a few times during the bout. What did you think of Stevenson's performance against Bika?
Yeah, you know, Stevenson won, but he didn't impress to me.
Right.
He certainly didn't look like a guy who was ready to flatten Sergey Kovalev. He looked like a guy who was about to be fed to Sergey Kovalev. You know, Bika coming up in weight, he hung in there pretty tough, considering. And for somebody who has this much ballyhooed punching power, yes, Stevenson landed that sweeping left flush several times. But Sakio Bika didn't crumble under it. He didn't collapse at all. And if Bika isn't hurt by it, Sergey Kovalev isn't going to be hurt by it. Stevenson has been avoiding Kovalev, obviously, for a reason. And I think we saw exactly why this past Saturday. Not the most impressive performance. And he, in my opinion, made a big mistake with the showboating, with silly behavior. He should not be doing that, because if he takes a fall, that's going to come back to bite him right in the backside. Everyone's going to remember all that nonsense behavior. I mean, he hasn't merited it.
I absolutely agree. You know, I think what the takeaway for me with the performance, and I'll probably get a lot of flack from it because I know a lot of people don't like to use this term, I feel like Bika exposed the fact that Stevenson is very limited in his repertoire. You know, Stevenson likes to throw that big left, and it is a devastating punch, and it has crumbled a number of competitors, but it's going to take more than that to defeat Kovalev. He doesn't have the most spectacular footwork. You know, he doesn't work off of a jab or anything. They're going to be pretty evenly matched. You know, Kovalev is not a blown up opponent from a lower weight class, and nothing about that performance told me he would run through Kovalev or even defeat Kovalev just because of the limited amount of things that he did. At this point in his career, can you add a number of tools to his repertoire? I doubt it. You know, he's kind of late in the game to be teaching new things, but if he connects with it, You know, everyone has a puncher's chance, but at this point, my money is still on Sergey Kovalev if the fight ever comes to fruition. If it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I agree. And let's remember too that Stevenson had a 5-inch reach advantage over Bika, which you could absolutely see. You know, sometimes in a fight, you know on paper they've got a reach advantage, but it doesn't really manifest. It was obvious. It was right there in front of your face. Somebody with that much of a reach advantage, who allegedly has that much power, should have taken care of Bika without getting touched. And
exactly.
He did not do that. Not even close.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I think he'd be in big trouble against the Crusher. I think he'd get crushed.
You know, looking at the trend of these cards now you've got the whole PBC, you've got, you know, fighters fighting on CBS and NBC, and, you know, I just feel like the whole thing is just a big impromptu tournament. But we look at, it looks like the broadcast fights, and correct me if I'm wrong, the NBC and the CBS stuff will feature only Al Heyman fighters. When we see the bouts that are on Spike and on some of the other affiliates, it looks like he partners with, say, Goosen if he's on the West Coast and Lou DiBella if he's on the East Coast. So with that in mind, I think he's kind of showing us the pecking order of who is going to get what piece of the pie. You know, we've seen the Kareem, the Thurman, and the Broner and the Stevenson. We've seen all of them on the network TV. I recently read that he signed a new light heavyweight with Stevenson. I'm so sorry, I can never pronounce the guy's name. Tommy Gunn, who is a light heavyweight. Do you think, looking at the Heyman stable, it's unlikely that Stevenson will fight someone outside of the Heyman stable? Do you think by Heyman signing with Stevenson that would be a potential next opponent? Or is another direction he could go to is a fight, a big Canada fight, since he's promoted by Yvonne Michelle, a fight with Pascal for the Battle of Canada? Or, you know, what do you think Stevenson's next, what do you anticipate his next move will be in the ring?
I do think that's what's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Canadian bout. It's a guaranteed payday. It's guaranteed fan base, and Pascal's out there to be had. I think that's very possible. You know, the other guy floating around out there I think is a possibility in the mix is somebody like Isaac Chilemba, who, while he didn't have the most wildly impressive victory, he did get a very solid victory, and he'd be a fair opponent for either of those guys. He's certainly earned it far above Beterbiev at this point. He's far more of a veteran. I think that he would be eager enough for the exposure to play along and take whatever terms he's handed. I think he'd be happy with a fair payday and the exposure. The combo would suit him just fine. I think we'll see him in the mix there somewhere. But to me, the overall news that is positive is, you and I have actually now spent 15 minutes talking about the light heavyweight division. It wasn't that long ago. We couldn't have filled 2.5 minutes talking about the light heavyweight division. So, it was
like, so what do we talk about?
Yeah. Oh. And hey.
We're not going to fight again. Oh.
And if we're lucky here in a few months, hey, you can even have Chavez Jr. up in this division. All he has to do is have a few more bowls of cereal, and he's good.
I wish he would just quit playing with us and move up in weight. No one believes that you can make 168 pounds comfortably. Just stop playing with us. He's getting ready to fight Fanfara, who's a light heavyweight. My God, just jump in the pool. Stop sticking your toe in. You want to. It's going to feel good. You like to eat. Just make the jump to 172.
Yeah, he absolutely should.
He barely made 172 when he fought Brian Vera.
Yeah. Well, and he fought a fight that nominally, couldn't make the weight, and at 168. And in the day of the fight, I think he weighed 182. I mean, he didn't just miss one weight, division. He went up 2. I mean, that is ridiculous.
Wait, here's my weight. No, wait, here's another one. No, wait, here. I'm going to weigh at this one.
And all joking aside about how ridiculous that is. That is dangerous when you put up an opponent that much smaller against somebody, and especially an opponent who feels like they're in absolutely no position to turn a fight down. They need the money, they need the exposure, they're concerned about how they'll be treated by promoters if they back out. They go forward, and that is not a good position to put any boxer into. I know I am spitting in the wind, but I would love to see day of the bout weigh-ins come back. Never going to happen. You and I both know, never going to happen, because especially with big fights, they're an additional event. They're an additional spectacle. I'm betting for Mayweather and Pacquiao, you're going to see the Grand Garden Arena full, sold out the day before just for the weigh-in. Guarantee it. And what do you think tickets will go for?
I'm just curious how they're even going to do that, because the way the MGM is set up, it's already ridiculous. Just kind of navigating through there, for those of you who have ever been there, just, you come in the MGM, it's a big lobby where the big lion is in the lobby, whatever. You come down the hallway to where the arena is, and everyone is just kind of siphoned through this one little tunnel, and there's a jillion other people in the hallway who are not going to the fight at all. Because everyone goes to Vegas. There's considerably more people in Vegas than people who are going to the fight. And it's just going to be hairy-carry, because there's just going to be bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies and bodies of people in the lobby. I know when they did the fight with Canelo Alvarez, the weigh-in didn't start until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that.
Yeah,
I went in the
3 o'clock is their standard now for Vegas, big Vegas.
Just to hit the media room, just to get a little work done at like 9 in the morning and to get free breakfast. And there were tons of people lined up, like camped out, like they were given, like Black Friday. Like people were going to buy a $100 TV, and it's going to be that times 30 for this Pacquiao fight. And I'm very curious to what the MGM is going to do from a safety standpoint, just to cope with all these people who are going to be in Vegas, who are not. You're not getting in. You're going to Vegas. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a tough time.
You're not going to get in unless you already have your hotel room booked or you plan to sleep in your car, because a standard hotel room right now in Vegas that would have been, a decent, nice room that maybe would have set you back $125, $150, close to $800 right now. That's nuts. You can't get enough people in the room to make that worthwhile, and that is not achievable for the average fan. But I think we're going to be in the situation with the weigh-in. Don't you think they're going to have to either sell or give away tickets? You cannot have tens of thousands of people lining up 10 hours before in that hotel. It would absolutely paralyze their business day all day Friday.
Just think, there's like some grandma and grandpa who are going to Vegas who just have no idea this fight's going on. There's always someone who just has no idea this fight's going on. They're going to show up in Vegas at the MGM like, what the hell is going on here?
That's right. They just want to gamble, hit the buffet, and karaoke.
Get a little slot machine, have a drink, take a stroll. It was the same thing that happened when I went in December for the Khan Alexander fight, which is nowhere near as big a fight. But when I got there, going on at the same time at the MGM was like a big cowboy convention. And I remember what my face was like. There was like a rodeo ring and hay bales and just all this craziness going on in the MGM. And I remember my face walking in like, the fight is here, right? Is it at Mandalay? But it was tucked behind the country display, and you had to walk through the country thing to get to the arena. And so grandma and grandpa, please somebody call your parents and make sure they're not going to Vegas that weekend. Tell them to reschedule, go another weekend. They probably booked like a year ago, got a nice cheap hotel and everything.
Yeah, go, and if you are going to be there, stay up at the north end of the strip. Just stay out of the way. I mean, that would be your perfect day to go visit the Pawn Stars pawn shop. It's at the complete other end of the strip. It's normally really tough to get in there. You got to wait in line. No, that's the day you go up there and, do those other things. Go downtown, go see Fremont Street if you've never been up there, but don't go down to the south end of the strip. It's going to be nutty. Every hotel is going to be packed with gamblers. The sports books are going to be a crazy nightmare, and yeah, that's just not the best thing to do.
I'm saying 10 minutes away.
Yeah, let's back up a little bit. Yeah, let's back up a little bit to Chavez Fanfara, just so that we could say we talked about it.
Yes.
What do you think? Do we have any chance of Junior making a good show, or is Fanfara going to clean his clock?
Well, he is the house fighter, so if Fanfara wants to win, he will have to knock him out. But that's a very real threat that he could knock Chavez Jr. out. A lot of people aren't, putting their betting odds on Chavez Jr. That's just because they don't know who Fanfara is. If you think that Chavez Jr. has this huge advantage over this guy, I suggest you go watch a couple of his fights. And you have to recall, this is a true light heavyweight. This is not a blown-up person. This is someone who's been campaigning at this weight for quite some time. And Chavez Jr. taking an L is a very real thing. His own father said in our conference call, I didn't want my son to take this fight. So when your dad, who is a legend, is saying, son, I don't know, this is not the fight for you, but he has something to prove, so he took this fight. If he had something to prove, you could make weight. That's a possibility. And
that's asking a lot.
He said in the conference call that his team felt that the way this catch weight he's fighting at would be a good thing to him because he's been out of the ring for so long. If you've been out of the ring for so long, that means you had adequate time to lose weight. He's been out of the ring for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
In the course of 30 years, you can lose 30 pounds, especially men. You can lose 30 pounds in a year. Or 40 or 50 or 60.
No, wait a minute. He'd have to stop partying. He'd have to stop, smoking weed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'd actually have to train, more than a couple of days a week. I mean, he might actually have to do some road work.
What do you think about him being paired with Goosen, with Joe Goosen as his trainer? What do you think about him?
I think it's an interesting pairing. I mean, he keeps running through trainers, mainly because his work ethic is just so horrible. Freddie Roach, put up with him as long as he could in deference to his father. His father absolutely begged Roach to stick it out with him. And finally, after Freddie'd been stood up and screwed over and ignored over and over, he finally just said, I've had enough. I'm sorry. And, a trainer cannot keep working with a guy like that who ignores him. And, then the fighter puts on a bad performance, and who looks bad? The trainer looks bad. Freddie, no trainer deserves that. But maybe Goosen is enough of a father figure to a guy like Chavez to slap him around and get him busy, but
I'm just trying to imagine their dynamic with each other because Joe Goosen is so cool. I mean, he's just I just can't imagine their personalities meshing. Joe with the little jean jacket on. I just can't.
Yeah.
With all that machismo and I just can't reconcile it in my mind.
I gotta be.
At the same time, I try to think, well, who would I put Chavez Jr. with to train him? And I've come up with only one person who I feel Chavez Jr. can get him where he needs to be. Ann Wolfe.
Ann Wolfe would kick that boy's ass. It'd be
Ann Wolfe would kill him. He'd be in dog shape though. Ann would have him back in Texas, carrying logs on his back and running through the hills. Ann Wolfe, and she's not going to play with him like these other trainers. She don't give a damn who your daddy was. So
who else though trains very much in that vein is Timothy Bradley Sr. you know, he employs a lot of those same type of training techniques. He's an absolute backbreaker too. You know, that might be an interesting kind of a fit. What do you think about Virgil Hunter and Chavez? Do you think Virgil would eventually kill him? or would he finally break him up?
Virgil would probably talk too much for him because Virgil is so high ring IQ, and he would analyze and, you know, son, I think that you should be doing this a little better. And he'd be like, what? What did you say? What did you say, Virgil? So, you know, I don't know. I think Virgil is a little bit too intelligent for him.
Michael laughing. Michael can't even help himself that time.
I'm sorry, ladies, but when I hear Virgil Hunter speak, it reminds me of the Whisper song.
Yeah, exactly. The Yin Yang Twins. You know, I could imagine it's just like, son, you know, when you're in the ring, you have to, como? That's what all their training sessions would be like. Virgil, I can't hear you.
Let me see that jab. Let me see that jab.
Well, now,
hands go.
Virgil got a lot of heat. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of heat. Virgil got some heat for his performance on PBC on CBS. Virgil Hunter was brought along as the color commentator. I thought he was super. He's so insightful. He picks up on details that somebody who hasn't been in the ring can't possibly see and analyze. And that's a tremendous value to the fan watching. But other people watching said, well, I couldn't understand him. He needs to speak up. He needs to enunciate. And I think, no, you need to clean out your ears before you listen to Virgil.
I liked Virgil as well. I totally agree with you. I like that combination of him and Paulie and, forgive me, the other guy's name, Brian.
Kevin Harlan was the play-by-play guy.
I thought they were fantastic.
Excellent. He had clearly done his homework, and what I liked most about him, a really good play-by-play announcer, you barely notice they're there. They do what they need to do, they keep you updated, and then they get out of the way of the analysts, or they set up the analysts to be successful by throwing them softballs and correct questions right at the perfect time. Paulie worked really well with him, feeding right into wherever he was being led. There was no confusion in the conversation. It was seamless. And Hunter was that little cherry on top. I'm very pleased with those three, and I'm looking forward to seeing them work together again.
So much better.
Paulie was getting rave reviews on Twitter, and, you know, he's the Twitter king, so he was, for a good hour or two after the fight, engaging with fans and thanking them for their remarks about the performance on the fight. And he deserved it.
Absolutely.
And that's where, let's face it, his future is not in the ring. His future is outside the ring.
Absolutely. You know, and the other pro of seeing Virgil, I've been wanting to see Virgil on something ever since they did the I think on HBO it was called Beneath the Lights or Under the Lights or something like that. It was him and Tim Bradley. They did a look at, I can't remember what fight it was. It was Pacquiao, Jerry, or I can't remember what fight they were analyzing, but it was like a little short episode or whatever it was. If you haven't seen that, go on YouTube on HBO's channel and look for it's Beneath the Lights or Under the Lights. Whatever that was that Virgil Hunter was in, he was fantastic. And he is underrated, you know. If he ever gets tired of Amir and Andre, I mean, they're not fighting. So he might as well put him on the desk too.
Might as well. Yeah, he's got to do something to keep him busy in between. So let's talk about Andre Ward. We're talking about guys up in this weight class. The future of Andre Ward. What do you think? You know, he's finally back in the mix, and come on, Andre. What are you going to do, Andre?
Victim of his own talent and his own arrogance. You know, come on, son of God. I need you to turn the vanity down just a little bit. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. You know, I totally get you're the champion. You're deservedly the champion. You pretty much steamrolled through everyone in your division already in one tournament. But what do? Do you want to cement your legacy? Or do you want to just be the champion? You know, if you want to go down in history as one of the greatest, you're going to have to go to other places. If it's about securing a future for your family, you're going to have to go to other places, because I know that Oakland loves you and everyone wants to fight in front of their hometown crowd, but you're not going to get the money you want in fighting in Oakland. Let's just say he got the fight against Chavez Jr., which is a fight he thought he was going to get. Big pay-per-view fight. That fight wouldn't have happened in Oakland. They're not doing a pay-per-view in Oakland. They're going to do a pay-per-view in Las Vegas because Chavez Jr. is the draw. So would he have been against that fight? If he decides to fight Golovkin, Golovkin moves up in weight, that fight's not going to happen in Oakland because Golovkin is now the draw. That fight's going to happen in Los Angeles. If he moves up in weight, as I think he should, and we'll get into that, that won't happen in Oakland either. You know, what are your thoughts on Andre Ward?
Yeah, this is yeah, I agree with you. Hometown fights are great, but eventually every fighter's aspiration is to do the big setting in Las Vegas, or in some cases New York, or in some cases in Great Britain or Germany. You want to be in O2 Arena, you want to be at Wembley, you want to be at, I'm trying to think of the big venue in Germany that the Klitschko's always fight in. Those are the other big venues outside the U.S. You know, maybe you go to Macau even. That's, you know, Bob Arum has been very successful building that up as a venue as well. But, yeah, really, if Ward really wanted to make this happen, he could at least stipulate, okay, I want it to be on the West Coast. Los Angeles and Las Vegas are not even an hour plane ride from Oakland. You know, Andre, you know, go check the airline schedule. Southwest can get you there, I promise. You know,
I bought a Southwest flight today for $69.
It's not a big deal. I think you can afford that. Or, you know, get one of your famous friends to fly you. Aren't you buddies with Nick Cannon? Come on.
Right.
Can't he hook you up on a ride? I think so. You know, I mean, even though Nick and Mariah are on the outs, I think that he could make that happen. So this is the oddest smokescreen to me. You know, I think underneath it all, Andre's a little bit worried about what's going to happen under the bright lights out there. And if it happens in Oakland, it's almost as if there's a bad outcome, he could pretend it didn't really happen.
Right.
Because nobody saw it. No,
right.
Oh, were you looking at me over there?
That wasn't. Yeah. That wasn't me. That was my cousin.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then the thing with Andre Ward, too, you know, he's got this new deal with Rock Nation. We still don't. Who are you going to fight? You still have no opponent. You've made it very clear you're not going to travel. Who are you going to entice to Oakland? Who's a credible opponent at this point? You know, okay, I'm going to give him a slight pass just on the fact that he's been out of the ring for so long. So I'm not expecting his first opponent to be a Carl Froch or something like that. I'm okay. I got it. You're going to get, like, you know, the pool guy to come fight you. Okay, cool. I'll give you a pass on that. But he still has no opponent. So at super middleweight, you've done it all. Chavez Jr., who allegedly is still going to campaign at 168, has made it clear he wants to fight Carl Froch. Carl Froch has made it clear he wants to fight Chavez Jr. Chavez Jr. probably will have no problem going over to England because he realizes the financials make sense for him to go over there. Your father's a legend. You make this big sweep into England. He's going to make a hell of a lot of money. And I think that's the bottom line for Chavez Jr. Now with Andre Ward, it leaves you without someone who's going to make you some money. So what do? Do you move up in weight? I know Gennady Golovkin gets a lot of grief. Oh, he should move up in weight. He said he was going to move up to fight. Chavez Jr. should move up to 168. If he's so big and bad, he should move up in weight to fight Andre Ward. Well, at the same time, Andre Ward should move up in weight to fight a Stevenson, a Mohammadi, a Kovalev, a Pascal. There's a number of guys. I remember right before the Edwin Rodriguez, right before the shoulder surgery, whatever fight that was before he had shoulder surgery, there was a video on Boxing Scene where he said ultimately he wants to end his career at heavyweight because he still has that respect for the heavyweight being the glamour division. of the olden days, and he wants to end his career at heavyweight. You're not going to end your career at heavyweight if you're not fighting. You're not going to end your career at super middleweight if you're not fighting. Your career is it's pretty much done. You've been inactive a long, long time now. So all the hoopla and the hype and the Jay-Z's and the Rock Nations and the monies and everything, you still have no opponent at the end of the day.
I have a question, ladies. Question submitted in regards to Andre Ward from Mr. Boxing Addict on Twitter and the regular Pound for Pound Boxing Report. He submitted this question about Ward. With all the media talk of how he would come to England and easily be called Froch, it has since transpired that Andre was never coming and that he had nobody lined up for the Oakland fight all along. With home fights in the Super 6 against the average Bika and Green, the overrated and weight-drained Chad Dawson, and barely top 20 Edwin Rodriguez, has Andre Ward been shortchanging fans? And do you think he would have took the biggest payday? Do you think he should have took the biggest payday of his life and accepted the challenge of coming to Nottingham and fight Carl Froch in the rematch?
Go ahead, Gayle.
I don't think so. Not yet. He needs a tune-up fight. And fair enough. He's been out of the ring a long time. I don't begrudge him a tune-up fight. A decent one, a fair one. But he needs to get that on the books and get it out of the way. He needs to, there's something about, getting off the pot. Okay, Andre, you need to get off the pot. You need to get a fight under you, shake the rust off, pick someone very happy, provide a backstop for you and get a payday. That's fine. But then, depending on your performance, let's say you come storming out of the gate, you have a great performance. Son, you need then to take on the big boys. You need to take on all comers. The greatest champions aren't the ones with a 0 on their record. The great champions are the ones who said, I fought them all. I took on everybody, and I kept coming. And that's what the fans care about. A lot of fans, except for the freaks like us, ask them what someone's record was. They honestly don't really know. People probably know that Floyd Mayweather's undefeated. How many fights has he had? Do they know Pacquiao's record? Not a clue. Not a clue.
I didn't know Pacquiao's record until I saw the shirt start floating around. And I still don't know. I know he lost 2-3 fights. I have no clue.
57-3. And people don't know. Yeah, he has 10 more wins than Mayweather and 3 more losses. So, that's not what matters to the fan. What matters to the fan is they get to see you. They get to see you engage. And that's all they care about. So, Andre is, he isn't going to preserve his legacy by staying undefeated. He's going to ruin his legacy by not engaging for the fans. Bottom line is they are going to move on. They're going to forget him.
Joining us on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report is blogger and entrepreneur Keisha Morrisey. Can you hear us, Keisha? Can you hear us, Keisha?
We know Keisha's had some technical difficulties, so
yeah, she's
working on it.
Difficulties on her end, and Jeandra, she just left. I'm gonna try to get her back. Proceed what you were talking about, Gayle.
Oh, Ward needs to get out there. But to answer your question, Mr. Boxing Addict, I don't blame Ward for saying no, not yet. That's really the right answer for him right now is no, not yet to Froch in a Nottingham setting. But 8-9 months from now, after he's had a tune-up fight, maybe 2, then he needs to say yes, and that needs to be a big, big fight. And it's a good fight. A big money fight. It's good for all the right reasons. We'll see if he makes it happen. He's got a promoter that's very new to the business, and that's not, the success that Jay-Z has had is very impressive, but it is not in this venue. And boxing promotion is an art all to itself, and I'm not sure the skills are going to translate from the music industry. We'll see.
Well, until we can get Jeandra and Keisha back on. I guess I can step in right quick. What else would you want to talk about?
Well, let's look ahead at, we've got a big fight this weekend. You and I can start talking about that a little bit. Yet again, Premier Boxing Champions is going to stage a bout. We're going to get another Saturday night primetime event on NBC. In fact, they're making a very big deal of having both Bob Costas and Al Michaels participating in the broadcasts. And apparently they've never worked together. So that's going to be very interesting. They're hauling out all the big NBC sports stars for this one. And this is at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Two big fights on the card are Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson and Peter Kid Chocolate Quillen against Irish Andy Lee. So, Jeandra, we're setting up this weekend's fight action in Brooklyn. We're seeing a lot of hype for the fights. If you haven't seen the PBC Corner to Corner preview, it's running like crazy on all the subsidiary NBC cable channels. You can, between Premier League stuff and hockey, you can barely miss it. So if you haven't seen it, take it in, in the next 48 hours or so. You get a nice preview of both fights. These are some interesting bouts. These are decent names in the boxing world, perhaps not real familiar to the casual fan, so they want to try and make a big introduction of themselves. Jeandra, right. First of all, let's talk about that fight between Quillen and Lee. This is an interesting bout, and both of them are hoping it sets themselves up for some bigger things. What do you think about that matchup, and will you make a prediction?
It's such an odd road to how this fight came to be. Quillen was a champion, vacated the belt when he was going to fight Matt Korobov, who went on to fight Andy Lee, who beat Matt Korobov, who now will fight Quillen for the title. Not the one he vacated, but another version of it. They're fighting for the one that Crazy Taylor had to vacate down there in down in the South. Yeah. So, my God, my phone is going crazy. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so
Crazy Taylor.
Crazy Taylor. I just call him Crazy Taylor at this point because that man crazy. So, yeah. An interesting road. Andy Lee, formerly of the Crunk Gym, well, still of the Crunk Gym, trained with Emmanuel Stewart, late great Emmanuel Stewart. It's a good matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I give Quillen the advantage. I think it'll go the distance. But it is a good matchup. Andy Lee's a live dog. The fans will probably be very entertained. He looks really good in the fight against Matt Korobov. So I'm looking forward to the fight.
Yeah, that's going to be a good fight. Andy, it's interesting. Andy Lee's training in Monaco, of all things, right now. Kind of staying away from the bright lights and the big city. And I think he's also there to be kept out of the pubs back in Ireland, frankly. Lee's one of those guys that can look like he's in horrible trouble in a fight. I mean, several times now he has been on the brink of having a fight stopped, only to land a haymaker out of nowhere and end the fight. So he's one of those guys that's just dangerous. He just talk about the luck of the Irish. He has won some fights, just pull them out of his ass, frankly. That's what makes him fun to watch. But Quillen is certainly the more traditionally skilled guy. And to make a big splash, he really should try to get the fights not to go the distance, try to stop him. But I do think that's going to be tough. Andy can take a hit and keep on coming, and that should be, I think, by far the more entertaining fight of the two for the evening.
Let me see if I can get Keisha on here. Keisha, can you hear me? I know you're dealing with some technical issues. Keisha Morrisey, can you hear us? Keisha, can you hear us?
No, Keisha.
Proceed on, lady. Proceed on, ladies.
Sure thing. So the other fight on the actual main event fight of that evening is Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson. Danny's the undefeated, in theory, guy with the belts. Peterson the challenger. Peterson is kind of a hard scrabble guy out of Washington, D.C., with an interesting backstory, who, was plugging along, and then out of nowhere, a couple of years ago, in a fight, people were almost too busy to see because it was right on top of Christmas in Washington, D.C., fought Amir Khan and beat him, and has been kind of riding that victory ever since. Garcia needs to have a good, solid, splashy victory. He has had 2 terrible fights for 2 different reasons. His last fight was against an opponent so ill-considered, so bad, so from the dry cleaners that the sanctioning bodies wouldn't even sanction it as a title defense against the now infamous Rod Salka, whose name will now be connected with bad, low-level opponents for the rest of that man's life, which is really a shame. Yeah, guy willing to take a fight to get a payday. It was embarrassing. Anyone, big deal. His previous fight, however, was supposed to be his big victory lap to the home country in Puerto Rico against the guy with the worst luck in boxing, Mauricio Herrera, who absolutely beat Garcia, no question, and Garcia got handed the decision. It was that's the thing. That's the kind of fight that makes boxing look bad at every level. And then, as a PS, poor Herrera comes back, has another fight at the end of last year. Should have won that. Did win it. Lost that with the judges too. And sent Teddy Atlas at ESPN on one of the epic rants of all time. So Garcia needs to win, if he's going to win this one, a good, clean fight. You think it will happen, Jeandra?
I think so. I think he knows what he's up against. He's got to knock Lamont Peterson out. No going to the cards, not leaving it to the judges. I predict he will knock Lamont Peterson out. But he needs, damn the predictions, he needs this win to be very clear because his reputation amongst fans now and watchers and pundits and all the great folks is just kind of shit, After so many terrific fights where he entered the underdog, Morales is old, but Amir Khan, Lucas Matisse, he was riding that wave so high to the point where I was like, wow, this guy really is the truth out of Philadelphia. This guy is crazy. And then we get the Mauricio Herrera fight. They can say what they want about that fight. Those of us who watched at home heard Angel Garcia in the corner. And Angel don't mince words. He told him he was losing the fight.
Yeah.
And then, don't insult us and come back and say, oh, yeah, my son was doing good in the fight. We heard you in the corner. That's what the mics are for. And then you get to the Rod Salka. Poor Rod Salka. I feel so sorry for him. He, it's like certain fighters who will just always have that lives with them. There's Rod Salka, there's Chris Algieri, and there's Austin Trout. Those 3 guys will live forever in infamy for the wrong reasons. And, Rod Salka is just that guy. And
I have to admit, my favorite is Tor Hamer, who got fired on Twitter.
And Tor Hamer. He should be on holiday. The first fighter in the history. He should be on snap. The first fighter to ever get fired on Twitter by his own promoter. That's terrible.
It's the greatest stuff in the world. But what I hope for overall, I mean, love him or hate him, whether you think he's boxing savior or boxing Satan, I hope that Al Heyman has a really good event on Saturday night. These events on network primetime broadcast television in the United States are going to determine the immediate future of boxing in this country.
Right.
Whether it crawls its way back to being a bit more of a mainstream sport or not. So whether you like what Heyman's doing or not, whether you're concerned about the level of control he has over the sport, we all need to support his success right now to make sure that the networks see a good product, it makes them money, it brings in an audience, you know, and then they can play ball a little bit with some of the other promoters, you know, work out some deals. Right now, what's happened is Al Heyman has literally bought the entire block of airtime from NBC, CBS. They buy it all. They don't just provide the promotion or the programming in exchange for the exposure. You know, Al has bought it. Al owns the network for those 2 hours. He owns the commercial time, which is why on CBS you saw mostly little biographical promotions for all his upcoming fights for the next 3 or 4 months, because Heyman owns all that airtime. It wasn't that he couldn't sell the commercials. It's that they were of way more value to him to promote his upcoming fights on other networks in some cases, which is very interesting. So
I wanted a commercial in there. You know, hi, I'm Jeandra LeBeauf, and I'm the owner of Bad Culture. I wanted me a commercial in there too. I feel like I know more about all these guys than I ever knew before. But it's very slick, and you know, for the people, the anti-Heyman coalition, I get it. You know, I totally get it. It's like when Walmart moves into your neighborhood and they drive out all the mom and pops. I totally get it. I totally get it. But at the same time, think about these younger guys who are coming up in the sport. He is opening a lane to bring back boxing to prominence, you know? So he's not only, obviously it's for his benefit, you know, we're not naive, but think of all these younger guys who can reap the value of boxing being brought back to a prominent place. There might be some kid in the gym who's 12 years old right now. He might not necessarily be a Heyman fighter, but it could be the next champion of the world. And what better than to have the platform in place to showcase these talented people when they get to that level? You know, it was either that or let boxing just kind of grudgingly trudge along, you know, on the back roads and be treated like the sports stepchild that it has been for the last few years. You know, I never thought boxing was dying, but it was definitely getting treated like a stepchild. You know, when you go to most sports sites, boxing's not on the main page. When you go to most major coverage publications, they don't cover boxing regularly. They only cover boxing if Floyd is fighting or Pacquiao's fighting. Or you might get a Cotto story in the LA Times, New York Times, USA Today, something like that. Now, with it so prevalent, it forces publications and all forms of media to begin talking about it because it's all over your TV. So it would be irresponsible for these media sources not to write about it. So think of it as just the exposure, because if they're paying attention to the Heyman fights, they're going to pay attention to the other fights too.
Yeah. So, and they might get to see a real fight. You know, for everybody who tunes in on Saturday, maybe they really will pay attention on a night when ESPN has really a decent card on. Or they may even catch up with Fox Sports 1 and find something good. Or if they've got Showtime or HBO because they're a fan of one of their other shows, you know, maybe they tune in and see a fight between two guys with big long names they never heard of before, Provodnikov and Matisse, and say, whoa, that's a fight. And that's stuff that will bring fans back. Absolutely.
The perfect example, the fight you and I were just at here in Ontario, Chris Arreola. Who knew that Chris Arreola was going to be the fight of the night? We know Chris Arreola was fat as hell. But if you don't watch boxing regularly and that's what you turned on, it was like, damn, this is exciting. That Spike TV card did more than their MMA. And everyone likes to say, oh, MMA is outpacing boxing, you know, because boxing's dying. It's all about MMA. Not according to that card, because that Spike card killed all MMA broadcasts that they've ever had. So,
and it was in a little eastern suburb of, I think of it as, of Los Angeles, Ontario. The only reason most people even know Ontario is there is that's the airport you end up in. If you're fogged out of any other major airport in Southern California, you'll end up landing in Ontario and they bus you to wherever. But they've got a nice, shiny little arena there that seats 10,000. It's a real pleasant place to see a fight. And you did have a lot of folks converge from all ends of Southern California To me, the funniest thing was, other than the hometown heroes who everyone was excited to see, trainer Robert Garcia was the absolute rock star of the place. He could not walk 3 feet without somebody stopping him. Oh, hey, Robert, can I get a selfie with you? And he obliged every single person. By the time that dude got to the men's room, his bladder must have wanted to explode. It took him that long. Everybody wanted to see him. And that is nothing but good for boxing. And the truth is we owe a lot, particularly in Southern California, to the Latino community who has kept boxing alive, who has always supported the sport on both sides of the border. And thank God that's a population that's growing in prominence, growing in economic power. They've kept boxing really roaring along. And I say, thank God. Muy bien.
Muy bien. Muchas gracias a la raza.
That's right. And hey, we all like Mexican style. What can we say? So, that combined with what Heyman's doing, I'm very glad to see Friday Night Fights at ESPN. Not going away, even though it's now going under the Heyman banner. Everything else. And the big fights are still going to be on the major premium networks pay-per-view. So, they will still feel like they've graduated up to the big time when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question, ladies. This is a question from me personally. You mentioned Danny Garcia and his fight with Lamont Peterson. You can't talk Danny Garcia without talking his father, Angel. Your opinion of him and the way he acts, some of the things that he says. Personally, I look at some of his past comments, whether it was comments leading up to the Khan fight, or even when he went off on that long extended rant during the press conference for the Matisse bout. He's emotional, but a lot of things I think can be debunked. And some of the things he says I think are just borderline ignorant. He just doesn't think before he speaks, and that's why I have an issue with him. Your perception, your thoughts of Angel Garcia, and to me, how he at times gets a pass for some of the wild and crazy things that he says. He's just looked at as almost as like a Archie Bunker kind of character, a guy who just talks crazy, but he doesn't really get criticized in the way that others who have said things has in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting characterization. He is kind of a Puerto Rican Archie Bunker. He is. He's a loose cannon. He shoots off his mouth all the time. Between he and Robert Guerrero's father, Ruben, I like to see those two guys in the room, those two dads. The sons, both said, I know my dad talks shit, then I have to go in there and back it up. And so far they've been able to. Most of the time. I think people perceive that he is just such a rough around the edges guy that it isn't. He isn't smart enough for it to be calculated or mean. He just shoots off his mouth, and I think that everyone understands that he isn't targeting anyone or any group in particular. He says this stuff about everybody. So, it's still an even playing field. He's not picking on anyone. I think that's why he gets a pass. You just sort of shrug and let him roll off your back. That's kind of where everyone is with him. What do you think, Jeandra?
Angel is just that wild, ignorant uncle that shows up to the family reunion drunk, and he's hitting on the women, even though he knows they're his nieces, and he don't mean anything by it. He's just ignorant. He's from the hood. He's just that guy from the hood. He's very clearly he did a bid for a while. He's politically incorrect, and he don't care. He just doesn't care. I can at least. If for no other reason, I can respect the fact that he says it publicly, and so you know where you stand from the jump. I'm more fearful of someone who just acts like everything is so great and I just love everyone, and then later on a video surfaces like, purple people ain't shit, later on.
The bigot in silence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I don't think it's as much bigoted as that he's just a shit talker.
Exactly.
I don't think he cares what's in front of him. He's just gonna talk shit. He doesn't know any other way. Watching
his son is badass.
Yeah. And and there's a whole interesting dynamic to me about fighters who are trained by their father. That can be a very tension-filled, fraught relationship, and it's often, even when it's not really in the fighter's best interest, it is really, really tough to fire your father as your trainer unless you've got some help. So, I can appreciate the difficulty there. If a father has trained their son correctly as a fighter, eventually the son outgrows the dad as a trainer and has to move on. And they're not there yet. And maybe that's what we're seeing with Danny Garcia, to bring this conversation around full circle, with some not so great performances the last couple of fights for different reasons. Maybe he's hit that wall and needs to step up to a more elite trainer. But what's he going to do with Daddy?
I feel the same way about Sean Porter. I feel the exact same way. It's time to keep him different.
And Robert Guerrero. Absolutely. All three of them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
At least Sean Porter's dad is quite a shit talker. Interestingly, I don't think that with Bradley, but he's got more input than just his dad, so I think there's a difference there. But it should be worth watching. Everybody tune in. Support your network TV boxing. Premier Boxing Champions on NBC this Saturday. And it's free. You have plenty of money for your beverages. Okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know I'm going to get. Oh, actually, you know what? Shh. Don't tell. I'm going to be watching the fight on delay because I have an other engagement I have to do earlier that evening. So I'm going to be completely, and it pains me to be off of social media on fight nights. I love social media on fight nights, and it really pains me that I wish I could give myself the Price is Right loser horn right now that I have to be offline for this.
Where am I going to get my entertainment now?
I know. I'm pretty ignorant on fight nights too on Twitter, so it pains me. I'm gonna have to stay off because I don't want to know what happened. So I'll be off the grid completely on Saturday.
So friends, you got 48 hours to make your plans. You got 48 hours to find me on Twitter at PRPro San Diego, and you have to step in and fill in for Jeandra because I count on the conversation. Watching fights is always way more fun with your friends. And there are a lot of folks, but Twitter is the place for boxing fans and fight freaks of all levels. And everybody engages. Everyone will chat with you. From the folks at the highest levels of the sport, including the fighters, the trainers, the promoters, the other hangers-on, the media, down to the fans who just love to. They put the shit talking of Mr. Garcia to shame. It is definitely not safe for work if you're working Saturday night, and it is not safe for the children. But it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Twitter is a great avenue, but Twitter is also a place where it can be very ratchet, very ignorant, as you say.
It can be a cesspool of bad taste, that's for sure.
Okay, I got a question that just popped up from Sean Newton. Ladies, how do you feel about Hammond fighters being protected? Cruz, Quillen, Garcia, Stevenson. Do you think this will stop the big fights from happening, from being made, much like it took Floyd and Manny 6 years to happen?
Well, I don't think you can gauge today's crop of fighters by Floyd and Manny because there are other factors into that, particularly Floyd's relationship with Bob Arum since he was his former promoter. So, I don't think you can gauge it by that. In terms of the other fights, most of the fights that we wanted to see over the last couple of years are happening. You know, we wanted to see Keith Thurman in a stepped-up fight. We wanted to see Danny Garcia fight Lamont Peterson. That fight should have happened before the Mauricio Herrera fight. We wanted to see Amir Khan fight Devin Alexander. That fight should have happened when Devin Alexander still had the belt and before Khan got freakishly obsessed with Floyd Mayweather. And
Thirsty.
Completely. And we're starting to see the fights we were supposed to see, but it's kind of, you know, it's a little bit too late, but we are seeing the fights that we want to see. I think we will continue to see the big fights as long as they both have the same manager. All right. So,
and you know, it is certainly no worse a situation than at the height of the Golden Boy and top rank Cold War, the Showtime HBO Cold War, which is thankfully thawed. I think that was far worse. So it's also too early. This is not a question we can answer. You know, having literally had just a few weeks of this under our belt. You know, a lot of times the big fights don't have anything to do with not happening because of a promoter. They aren't made because the risk versus reward ratio isn't high enough. If you're going to face someone who's really, really dangerous, you need to get a big enough payday so that if you lose, you know, it was worth it to you in some other fashion. You know, you banked a lot. You got a lot of promotion up front. You know, it was all, the whole package was worth it. That is the reason that Gennady Golovkin is not getting fights right now, because up till recently, he wasn't a big enough of a star among a wide range of people. He wasn't well known enough for the purses to be a decent size. And without enough money to risk your noggin in there against him, or you know, be taken out in the third or fourth round, you know, unless you were going to get a big, worthwhile payday, forget it. And now that he has stepped it up to where he really only has the big names left to go after, those guys are going to either A, like Miguel Cotto, make sure either way it's the last fight of his career. When he decides, I'm almost done, I want one more big, massive payday, then he can do it. Probably the only guy that will fight him sort of mid-career, because he is still so young, is Canelo Alvarez. And I think Canelo thinks he really has a decent chance. We all want to see Golovkin take out Chavez Jr., and there's the added incentive that his trainer, Golovkin's trainer, Abel Sanchez, has it in for Chavez Jr. He really, really wants to take him on. I think that will happen, and that is going to be as big a fight as Los Angeles has seen in decades, probably. So you can't lay any problems, certainly not yet, at the feet of Al Heyman, whether you think he's Satan or not.
Right. Absolutely.
Remains to be seen. So, and to close out here in the minutes we still have left in the show, you know,
I'm gonna extend over. I can extend over. No problem.
We can just keep going. But you know, really, the big news is the fight that's just a little less than a month away now. We talked about it a little bit. May 2nd, fight everybody waited for years. That honestly, I didn't think it would ever happen. We are going to see Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao at the MGM Grand Arena, May 2nd, for some crazy, crazy prices of everything. As we suspected, the pay-per-view is going to be $89.95 for standard, $99.95 if your system offers high definition. There will be no theater viewing, so you can't go and get your $20 or $25 or whatever the hell the theater tickets cost. They are not going to offer that at all. Which is
sucks.
Yeah.
I have a promoter who usually sends me tickets to give away for theater viewing. That sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah, it's a really good alternative. It's a fun thing to do. But you know what? You know, whoever's got the nicest TV, big screen of your friends, you all need to kick in either $5 you know, some decent imported beer or a decent bottle. All right.
Just come
and
with us.
there you go. Yeah, you know. Yeah.
You come with one of these, I guarantee they'll let you in.
Yes, you got to score that, you know, and you make it worth a while so that, you know, all of you have coughed up or coughed in your 10 or 15 bucks.
I'm a Grey Goose man myself, but go ahead with the Patron.
Oh, that's funny. I got my Grey Goose right over there at the bar.
I'm a Grey Goose person, too. This one's empty. It's for storing coins only.
I didn't know you could get coins to pop one of those things.
If I drink tequila, I might get on the Floyd undercard. I can't do tequila.
You know what? Let me tell all you viewers a little something. All this woman needs is a few mimosas, and she is off to the races.
I love it.
If there's a fight at midday on a weekend, oh boy, it's entertainment you couldn't buy. Let me tell you that. But right now, considering we're both sober, and I am making some assumptions, but considering we're both sober on a Thursday night, it's a little early to tell, but we are seeing and hearing some things from the training camps. And, you know, the interesting thing is all of the news is really coming from the Pacquiao training camp. He's very visible in Los Angeles right now. You know, people are following him up and down the street running. You know,
ridiculous.
He has packs of fans that just mob him. You know, he can go up the hill in Griffith Park, and it looks like guys cycling up Alpe d'Huez in the Tour de France. And, you know, and everybody's hemmed in next to them, and him and his posse are running through, and everybody's, you know, got the cell phones in his face as he goes by. It's absolutely crazy. And Jeandra,
how much work are you really doing with all these people? It looks like the LA Marathon.
Man, listen, that's just fans and fanboys. That's all that is.
But you know what? He seems to absolutely be relishing every minute of it. The training, the accolades, the TV appearances. He seems to be loving it. Meanwhile, you know, the guy who has always been the flash and the big talker, he is being very quiet, very serious. What does that say to you about their thoughts on the fight and their preparation? And I'm going to put that to both of you.
I'm going to say that you are seeing the version of Floyd that has kept Floyd undefeated. When Floyd talks a lot of mess and Floyd is out in the streets and stuff, but Floyd is only visible when Floyd is not fighting. And, you know, people can say what they want about Floyd. Floyd got to where he is because he is committed to his sport. And when it's fight time, unless it's filming for 24/7 or all access, you don't see Floyd Mayweather out in the streets. When they show him doing road work, the only people on the road with him are the people following him for his own safety. And he gets in and he focuses in. You know, there's the people who come to the gym, but it's like when we go to the gym. You know, if you're lifting, you don't really care who's around in there. But when it comes to sparring and all his really serious work, he doesn't allow that stuff to be filmed. And this is just kind of echoing the whole thing that went on during the course of these negotiations when they were saying, oh, we agreed to sign something and, you know, we've come to an agreement. And Floyd's side was saying, oh, well, what did we sign? You show me what you signed, you know? And this, the way this is going now, where you see Manny Pacquiao smiling and waving and kissing babies and walking old ladies across the street, this is the difference between the two of the fighters. You know, Floyd likes attention when he's not fighting. When Floyd fights, he's right here. And that's what got him where he is. You probably won't hear anything out of Floyd until we get to media week or a conference call. You won't hear a peep. We haven't heard anything. Leonard Ellerby, they have circled their wagons and they have honed in on training for this fight. And not much different from Canelo Alvarez, which people thought was going to be a dangerous fight for him. He didn't really do any media. Same thing for Maidana fights. He didn't really do any media. You didn't see him out. I don't think people have one perception of Floyd, but Floyd the fighter is a totally different person than the persona that they see when he's not fighting. And I think this is what it is. I'm just trying to imagine 80 people, including media, out running with Floyd.
Right.
Only media that would be allowed to do that would be like Fight Hype or something. But I just think, this is the Floyd that's kept Floyd undefeated.
Yeah. Well, and he runs in what are basically the suburban streets of Las Vegas, which once you get off the Strip, it's a very, very quiet community, surprisingly so. And depending on the time of year, you have to be running very late at night or very early in the morning because of the heat. So, right. It makes sense. You can go on those streets. They're dead quiet. There's no car to be seen for, miles. And they can have somebody run a van behind him, 3 or 4 people, and he's all good. Michael, what do you think about this run-up so far? I mean, we're still quite a few weeks away, but you've been watching the hype. What do you think?
As much of an issue I have with Floyd Mayweather for how he acts outside of the ring. I mean, for folks who watch me and listen to this podcast knows that I think that Floyd outside the ring, he can be self-serving, self-centered, and a bit of a narcissist. But the one thing you cannot take away from Floyd is that his dedication and his discipline to the craft, that's what you're seeing now. All that 24/7 stuff, that's just for promotion and for hype. What you've been seeing in this fight shows that Floyd is serious as a heart attack when it comes to this fight, when it comes to Manny Pacquiao, because he wants to win that bad. When you hear, and I'm going to call this guy out, folks like Skip Bayless talk boxing and talk Mayweather specifically.
He's a moron. He's a moron.
He is. He is. He's a sports troll and a contrarian. He ignorantly, when talking about Floyd, he talks about Floyd as if he doesn't put into account the dedication that Floyd puts into each and every bout. Notice when you see Floyd, he could be 6 months out of a fight, away from a fight, and not have another fight scheduled for another 6 months. What's the one thing that you notice?
He's always in shape.
He's always in shape.
He is at fighting weight 365 days a year.
He's always in shape. He's always ripped. If he wanted to, he could box 10 rounds easy, would have no problem. That's what I'm talking about. When an Adrian Broner tries to act like Floyd, this is what he does not understand.
Don't even get me started on that guy.
He doesn't understand that Floyd is a 24/7, 365 guy in terms of staying in shape, much like Bernard Hopkins does.
Yeah, absolutely.
For those who are watching on the podcast, what's that pic you posted? Marshmallow Puff from Ghostbusters?
This is Marshmallow Man.
This is from Big Hero 6 or Adrian Broner when he's not fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
Much like Bernard Hopkins. Yeah. Much like Bernard Hopkins. Much like Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime. Much like Hagler. Even Roy Jones. They all, during his prime, they always stayed in shape, and that's the thing that keeps him great, quite honestly. So as much as the issue I have with him outside the ring, and I'm going to ask you a question about that in a little bit, when you look at Mayweather and the way he's acting during this fight, he is showing now earlier what people in public, what people in the know already know privately, that when it comes to getting ready for a fight, when it comes to preparation, no one really does it better. No one.
But, both of them understand the science of staying in shape and fitness, and a lot of it happens in the kitchen. And the guys that get in trouble are the junk food junkies, the drinkers, the dopers who like their recreational drugs, and I'm not going to judge what somebody does in the privacy of their own home. I really don't care. Just don't go out there and drive and endanger me or anybody I love. You can do whatever the hell you want. But it is not conducive to your profession. And the guys that do last a long time, the Bernard Hopkins, guys like Mayweather, they live very clean. They do not drink. They do not do drugs. Most of them consider sugar a drug. They don't do that either. And they don't fluctuate in weight because they really, they don't have to go on a diet. It is a lifestyle. And they're very careful about their fitness. They get medical experts and trainers to work with them. They employ the best exercise science known to man. And Floyd can afford it. And who wouldn't want to work with a guy like that at that level? You know, if you're one of those people that studies nutrition and physiology, wouldn't you love to have him as your test case? So Floyd can take advantage of all that, as should every high-level fighter. But, you know, as we all know, many of us out here, that is really, really hard to stay disciplined. The ones that can do it put themselves in a beautiful position.
I mean, as he said in a 24/7 episode, he was watching Adrian Broner. He was saying, Adrian Broner, you trying to beat me? What you don't understand, motherfucker, why you out there partying? I'm sleeping and eating right.
Exactly. Right. So Floyd doesn't spend all this time losing weight. He can go to camp to train for technique and for advantage and for skill and look at film and figure out the things that he needs to do. He's not going to spend time just on the treadmill trying to lose weight to make weight. He's already at weight. He can really focus on the nuances of the battle. And that's what separates him from other fighters.
And this is what most fighters don't understand. It's easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. Easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape.
And you can really, really mess up your physiology yo-yoing your weight back and forth. You gain 20, 30 pounds, that's hard on your joints. Every extra few pounds on your knees is devastatingly hard on them.
The greatest example of that, Riddick Bowe.
And you may not feel that at 22 or 24 or 26, but you're going to feel it at 30. And it also messes your metabolism up. Every time you go up and down, it weakens you, and it makes it tougher to lose it the next time. So you're absolutely right, Michael. And a guy like Broner, you know, that stuff takes a lot out of you. Now, earlier this week, I think it was maybe Tuesday night, he posted a cryptic message on Twitter that says, I need to change. I know I need to change. And he got a lot of, you know, troll-type responses, but he did also get a lot of thoughtful fan responses saying, yes, you know, you really do. You do. If you're going to be serious about this sport, you do need to change your ways. You need to straighten up and get clean and stop the fooling around and pay attention. You know, and get your father out of the way. Speaking of fathers that are a problem, my God, the apple didn't fall far from that big ass tree. His father's a menace. All right, enough of those guys. So, Jeandra, are you ready to make a prediction? Michael, are you ready to make a prediction yet on Mayweather-Pacquiao? If you want a little more time, well, we can address it in an upcoming show. But if you're ready now, I'll give you the floor.
I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to do a special show that we would, regardless. So I'm ready to make a prediction. Go ahead, Jeandra.
My prediction is Floyd Mayweather by majority decision. I don't think that Floyd knocking him out ain't happening.
I'm right with you. I think it will go the distance, and if it goes the distance, I think Manny will be the busier fighter, but I don't think he'll be the more effective fighter. And that breaks my heart because I'd love to see him score a knockout against Floyd, but that is not what I would squander any of my pay on. I don't see it happen. What about you, Michael?
Again, I have to refer back to the ignorance of Skip Bayless.
I was going to say, my computer froze again.
I was gonna say I have to refer to the ignorance of Skip Bayless when he talks about boxing. He just gets on my damn nerves. He's sitting there talking about how Pacquiao will basically roll through Mayweather and knock him out. No, this is again.
Tommy Hearns was overrated.
This mofo actually on the show this week talking to Sugar Ray Leonard said, I have to sidetrack here. Apologize, ladies. This motherfucker said that Tommy Hearns that Leonard dominated Tommy Hearns mentally and physically throughout their fights. And I'm sitting here like, really? Did you see the first fight? The same Tommy Hearns who swept Leonard through the first 5 rounds. And after Leonard hurt him in rounds 6 and 7, Hearns came back and basically had his way with Leonard through 9, 10, 11, and 12 until Leonard caught him again and knocked him out. Did he see the second fight when Hearns was basically bouncing Sugar Ray Leonard around all over the ring in that second fight, minus the last round? And then, this is the same dude who tried to make a comparison between Manny Pacquiao and Hagler. How? Other than the fact that they're southpaws.
Oh, good enough.
Truth be told, he talks about the technical prowess of Manny Pacquiao, how it's underrated. Sorry, Mr. Bayless. Marvin Hagler was a better technical fighter than Manny Pacquiao, and it's not even close. And then on another show prior to that, he had the gall to tell Teddy Atlas that he thought that Manny Pacquiao could defeat a Sugar Ray Leonard.
Thank God we'll never.
I'm sorry I went off on this. I'm sorry I went off on that spiel, but I had to say that because he's a clown, and first of all, the fact that they centered that show around him makes no sense at all. And let's face it, and the fact that when they talk about boxing, they give him the platform to speak about boxing. Just because you covered the boxing 30, 35 years ago doesn't mean that you know about the sport like we do, like other within the YTBC does, or Twitter, be it Raging Babe, be it Miss Boxing Diva, be it you ladies, Wingy, the homie EJ Boxing Live, the OG Boxing Beats and Rhymes, Sean Newton, Mr. Boxing Addict. He will give this guy so much attention and act like he's a non-evil person. It's just infuriating to me. But back to the fight. The problem is, and the reason I mentioned Skip Bayless, he talks about how Pacquiao's going to roll him over. What he doesn't understand is that if a Juan Manuel Marquez can basically give Manny Pacquiao hell for 4 fights, not just the final fight when he knocked him out, but he gave him fight. He arguably beat him in the first fight. Second fight was close. Pacquiao won by a point. The third fight, there's no doubt about it in my mind that Marquez won. Knocked him out in the 4th fight. If Marquez can give Manny Pacquiao such trouble during those 4 fights because of his precise counterpunching skill, his accuracy, what do you think may happen if he goes in there with a Mayweather who's bigger, who's stronger, who's even more precise? He doesn't punch as hard maybe, but he's even more accurate and he's better defensively. That's the key. If Floyd can establish the jab, can establish distance, and make Pacquiao come to him, Pacquiao's going to be in a bit of trouble. Sure, Pacquiao can land a punch, and his speed is there, and as well as his activity. But if Floyd is on that night, if he's really on, and an indication of the way he's training and sparring, early word is that he's really on coming into this fight. He's really focused. He beats Pacquiao by decision. I just don't see any other way.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's interesting because Marquez is one of those fighters who's fought both men. Mm-hmm. And, Mayweather beat Marquez early on in his career. And Marquez believes Mayweather will win. He says the only way he sees Pacquiao pulling it out was with the knockout. And I just don't see that happening. So if that's what he believes is necessary for Manny to win, absent that, the fight goes to Mayweather. And it is interesting.
Go ahead, Gayle. I'm sorry.
The guys who have fought both Mayweather and Pacquiao, I put a lot of credence in what they have to say. But what's interesting is they think the man who gave them the hardest time, who beat them most successfully, is the guy who's going to win. So, Marquez feels that he's had the upper hand more against Pacquiao. Mayweather, beat him fairly handily, so he's going with Mayweather. De La Hoya, on the other hand, thinks Pacquiao can win. Well, now imagine that. So this is going to be interesting. It is interesting to see who's lining up on both sides, and it surprises me in some ways to see who's rendering an opinion. Mike Tyson thinks Pacquiao is going to win. What? Really?
I want to hear from Miguel Cotto who he believes.
Cotto says that Pacquiao's going to win.
Yeah, I don't see it. Well, we're all going to find out soon enough.
Can we talk about Pacquiao chin? I mean, look, he got knocked out, and I don't care what anybody says. Get knocked out in that way has an effect on you. And he hasn't really fought anybody who has really. Well, Bradley hit him solid in his second fight. I thought hurt him early in that fight. But what happens if Mayweather, who I think's power is underrated, starts catching Pacquiao squarely on the chin? will those thoughts of him being hurt by Marquez creep back into his head?
You know, it's going to be interesting. You know, that's a matter of mental and emotional discipline as much as it is, you know, physically being hit. Because, you know, hey, you make no mistake. You get hit like that, it hurts like hell, okay? Nobody likes it. Nobody wants to deal with that if they can help it. It's all about, can you discipline yourself to brush it aside, to ignore that it hurts, to ignore the fact that it might happen to you again, you know, and not let it affect you. So who's mentally stronger in that regard?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have been caught like that, you have to go a long way to erase that from your mind. Mayweather was absolutely right at the news conference to use that to plant that seed in Manny's mind. You know, I've never lost. You have lost. You have been face down on the canvas, you know, in a scene that none of us will ever forget. And he wants to make sure Manny keeps thinking about that. That's one of Floyd's most powerful weapons. It really is.
I agree. Gayle, that was so eloquently put. I could not agree with you more. The real key to victory in this fight is who has the mental fortitude. That is the only key. I mean, perfect example. Let's just look at the commercial they just released. That commercial was filmed the day of the Mayweather-Pacquiao press conference here in Los Angeles. Both of them are clearly in shape. They both have the same level of discipline to their craft. I think that Manny Pacquiao has too many people around him. I think he needs to separate himself and get back to the basics of when he was a killer. When he was a killer, he didn't have all these people around him running with him in the park and watching him battle box. It's too distracting. And I think that since he's underestimating his opponent, it's a little bit disrespectful, to be honest. You know, you don't need any hype to sell the fight. Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. If they never said a word to each other, the fight is going to sell. And I could not agree with Gayle anymore. It's all about planting that seed of doubt in the mind that you've lost before. It's like telling, if this is a crap-ass comparison, but it's like telling a woman she's ugly. No matter, you could be nice to a woman for the rest of your life. If you tell a woman that she's ugly, she's always going to remember that every time she sees you. And by him planting that seed in there about, you know, once you lost, you've lost. You always got, it's especially for fighters, it's always going to be in there. It's always going to be there. Always. Always, always, always. So I thought it's brilliant. It's like playing chess.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely right.
Well put.
You know, and Pacquiao, it was interesting, the tactic he's taken is to play it very cool and casual. You know, he can't beat Floyd at that game, and I think he's smart enough to know that. And in a way, his legacy moving forward, you know, let us all remember that in his home nation, he's an elected congressman, and everyone sees him eventually someday become president of the Philippines, which is kind of remarkable when you think about that. You know, he is going to have potentially success in a whole different arena, in a whole different stage than Floyd. And I think he is looking past that fight to that day, which is bound to come. And he's got a lot of time to get there. I think it will happen sooner than later. And it's almost as if he's taking this opportunity to set the stage in part for that day as a statesman, you know, being a man of the people, a man of God, you know, approachable, all the things that an elected official needs to do. It's almost how he's handling himself now. So it's a very interesting take between the two of them. It started at the news conference, and it's continuing.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of a tough question to ask in terms of this fight. I've been hearing some scuttle in terms of those who are talking about the fight from women. I know it's kind of corny to ask, but I'm going to ask you this as women. Um, I've heard some women who have said that they will watch the fight, but they cannot uh, cannot root for Mayweather uh, because of his known issues of domestic violence specifically. I know I saw Carrie Champion on ESPN on First Take said that she will watch the fight, but there's no way that she can support Mayweather. Um, in the aftermath of his comments in response to the Ray Rice situation, she gave really a passionate critique of Mayweather and why she's no fan of his. Jamel Hill of also ESPN has said similar things, and I've heard some of the things from women in general, but some sisters especially, that they cannot root for Mayweather. So I know this is kind of corny, but I'm going to ask you anyway, as women, your perception of Mayweather coming into this fight, in that regard, do you separate the outside issues with Mayweather and his domestic violence against women? Do you separate that from the fighter? Do you look at it all and just say it's just an ugly part of sports because there are other examples of men, let's just say for what it is, who have been guilty of that? Do you take the position that how are you going to sit there and talk about Mayweather and not talk about Pacquiao and his known issues of womanizing before his conversion? So I just put all that together. And I'll go to you on this one, Jeandra, first, since I mentioned Carrie Champion and Jamel Hill specifically, and some other black women I know who will not root for Mayweather. Your thoughts on that kind of topic regarding the fight, because I'm sure that somebody out there, and I wrote an article in response to Mayweather's comments about Ray Rice on the blog a while back. I'm pretty sure that as the fight come along, that somebody's going to make note of that regarding Floyd Mayweather.
Okay, well, I'll go with a few different trains of thought. You know, I separate things from the fighter. I don't advocate what they do outside of the ring. So there's that train of thought of separating the deeds from their job, because there's lots of people who do disgusting, sleazy things in their job and they still go to work every day and do their job well. So there's that train of thought. You know, I'd have to read Miss Hill and Carrie Champion. Who else? Who was the first recording?
Carrie Champion, who's the host of First Take.
Okay, so I'd have to read and know specifically what they said. They said they will watch the fight, but they cannot support Mayweather. By watching the fight, you are supporting Mayweather because he's profiting from it.
They cannot specifically say she will not root for him. That's why she's rooting for Pacquiao, but in part because she's not a fan of Mayweather, based on the things that he's done in his past.
And that's her.
And as I have to put this in context, Carrie Champion, she has said that she has been a victim of domestic violence in her past. So.
And I totally respect that. I don't advocate anything he does outside of the ring. It's disgusting. It's sleazy. We should all keep, not only men but women, we should all keep our hands to ourselves and respect each other and know when to walk away from a situation. So, but in terms of that, you know, I'm going to watch the fight, but I'm not going to root for him. That just reminds me of people who listen to rap lyrics and they complain about them and say, you know, I don't like what they're saying in the song, but the beat is fantastic. You know, it's, you know, I'm not disrespecting these female reporters. I value their opinion. I aspire to what they're doing in their respective careers because they're breaking through barriers that we as women have faced a long time working in media. But it's hypocritical to say, I'm not going to support him, but I'm going to buy the fight. You're still supporting him. If you're not messing with Floyd at all, don't watch the fight. Don't support the fight. Don't report on the fight. Don't do anything in regards to the fight. But back to the initial separating the deeds from the fighter, like I said, I don't advocate what he does outside of the ring. In terms of boxing, policing his antics outside of the ring, there's no policy in place for these type of issues. The NFL just barely made it a front-facing issue this year with the level. You know, domestic violence didn't just start happening. People just started getting camera phones and posting the videos of it. So it's just now becoming a commonplace thing in the forefront of the media, and they feel the pressure to report on it. But men didn't just start hitting women last week. It's been happening. So until boxing adapts a policy like the NFL, has the NBA adapted a policy? Has the NHL adapted a policy? Has soccer adopted a policy? You know, to single out, you know, if you're going to call for a fighter being chastised for deeds, you've got to go after all athletes, because it's happening in other sports too. Hell, it's probably happening in arm wrestling. It's probably happening in bowling. It's happening with HR people. It's happening everywhere. It has to be a class action. This is unacceptable behavior. So I'm going to get off my soapbox. Go ahead.
Well said. You know, you could be a fan of whoever you want to be. You could not support somebody. I mean, I have bigger problems with Michael Vick, frankly, than I do with, you know, Ray Rice. So I will support anything that gives that man a dime, because he's a dog murderer. Okay?
And his dog barks in the background.
Yeah, yeah, it's my dog's part. But I'll leave that. You're right, Jeandra. It is completely hypocritical for her to get on Floyd's case and say, well, I'm not going to root for him because I don't want to support him. Well, you're in the sports broadcasting profession, and you're reporting on his business as part of your job. So I think that is. We all need to separate ourselves when we cover boxing professionally. Yes, part of what's interesting about the sport is the personalities involved, the stories, how they got there, the challenges they faced to get there are often very compelling. It doesn't mean we support or defend anything that happened to them or what they did. You know, you could argue that 20 years ago, when Bernard Hopkins went to prison for 3 or 4 years, you know, that he should never have been forgiven and given a second chance. When the truth is, he did his time. He is one of the few people, perhaps percentage speaking, who absolutely learned from it, who vowed he was never going back, and used it to turn himself around into what is a very admirable life. But he hasn't always been that way. Sometimes people do learn from their mistakes, and if we didn't allow that in our society, you know, we would all be in big trouble if we all didn't have some second chances. I'm not saying that you have to like him, like what he did outside the ring. You know, he's not asking you for a date, okay? And even if he did, you don't have to say yes, even if he is going to buy you a $10,000 pair of shoes. And then what does that say about you anyway? So, you know, your reaction to his behavior is completely under your control. That doesn't mean that you can't, as an observer of the sport, engage with him. I have no problem with that. But no, I'm not going to his house. I'm not going to dinner with him. So what does it matter? You know, if we interact professionally, fine.
And as a sports reporter, I'm sure a number of people come across her purview every single day when she reports to work who are doing unscrupulous things in her background. Is she publicly making commentary on them? You know, oh, I'm not going to watch football anymore because of this incident. I'm not going to watch baseball. I'm not going to support this person. Don't support them. You don't have to support them. You're watching the sport, especially as a sports reporter. Just do your job. You don't have to like them. Just do your job.
And as an update, Jamel Hill, she said she's boycotting Mayweather because of his actions, that she will not watch him anymore or anything like that. So
that's what you do.
Yeah, that's fine, and she's perfectly entitled to do that. But you know, there's a lot of bad behavior out there. Do we start policing all these guys who've had DUIs? Because believe me, then you'd be throwing a lot of people in the hopper. Do you have a problem with a guy that has 8 kids by 5 different women, isn't paying child support? I have an issue with that too, Adrian Broner. And you know, we could really get into it with a lot of these people. Let's face it, you know, guys applying to Ivy League schools, you know, who've had a very cushy growing up background, tend not
Privilege.
to get from the sport of boxing. They don't, all right? This is a sport that provides opportunity often for young men who have a lot of, temptations around them, who live in very difficult circumstances, who turn to the sport for a lot of reasons, for a lot of the right reasons. But it doesn't mean that all the social ills that surround them don't come along with them. And some of them rise above it, some of them don't. The ones that use this as a stepping stone to do that, there's much to admire. But for a lot of them, it's not always possible.
Right.
Lastly, before we shut down the show, I have one final question. You have Mayweather-Pacquiao happening in May. 2015 has been a decent year in boxing. Moving forward through the rest of the spring and the summer, what fights would you like to see?
Andre Ward, period. I'd like to see Miguel Cotto, Canelo Alvarez. I'd like to see, of course, Stevenson Kovalev that we kicked off the show with. I'd like to see as much as possible of Roman Chocolate Latito Gonzalez as much as possible.
Yes.
Chocolate
as much as possible. And yeah, those are on my wish list. How about you, Gayle?
Well, all of the above, I think, would be super. I would like to see Golovkin in against Cotto. Or it'd be fine if he took on the winner of Cotto Alvarez. I think that would be worthwhile. Very good fight. I'd like to see Khan and Kell Brook in a big fight in Wembley Stadium. Big 80,000 crazed British fans, getting wilder than a Premier League game. I think that'd be fantastic. Would love to see that. I would love to see a fight along the lines of maybe Walters and Lomachenko. Walters and anyone, frankly. I'd really like to see Walters back in the ring. That was a barn burner of a fight last year with him.
Yeah,
he needs to be out there. I'd love to see something like that. I think I won't be too greedy. I'll add those to all yours, and I'd be very.
What else would be a good fight too?
Who's that?
Tim Bradley and Keith Thurman.
There you go. And I think there's a very good possibility of that happening. I could see that late at the end of the year.
Save Keith Thurman for Errol Spence in 2016, because if that happens in 2016, I'm saying right now, Errol Spence might beat him.
Errol Spence, man. Errol Spence should be feared. This is the man that dropped Floyd.
And the man who beat up Broner in sparring a couple of years back.
Man. And I would love to see. I'm not quite sure he's ready before the end of the year, but I'd like to see the battle of the 6'7" heavyweights, Wilder and Klitschko, at some point before Klitschko calls it a career. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think Wilder he's still raw, but I think he is better than we realize, and I think he will get better as he fights better talent. He's one of those guys I think will rise. I think that all ships will rise as he does. And I like what he brings to the sport. He's super charismatic, and he's the guy. He's the guy they want to put on networks on Saturday night.
Yeah. If Wilder keeps going, in about 2 years, Wilder is really going to be a killer when he starts filling out a little bit and get a little more weight on his frame.
Yeah. Can you imagine? 6'7" and he weighs 219. I have a trainer who's 5'8" who weighs 219. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
let me
he's
chime.
he's going to be a killer.
Yeah, let me chime in as far as fights I want to see. Brooke Khan, number one. Khan needs to stop being so thirsty about Mayweather and Pacquiao fight Kell Brook. That fight right there, he could probably make more. That is the fight for him. That's the fight that people want to see, and he could probably make just as much money per se if he fights Brook than he would fighting a Mayweather or Pacquiao, because they're not stupid. They're not going to give him that much money to fight him. Chocolate Gonzalez, of course. I'm so glad you said that, Jeandra. I'm so glad. I would love to see him fight either Estrada in a rematch or Anui. I would like for this featherweight. There was talk at the end of last year about a featherweight tournament with Walters, with Lomachenko and others at the time, Gradovich and Nonito Donaire and whatnot. But now that Gary Russell Jr. destroyed Gonzalez, I would like to see a tournament with them, with Russell, with the Walters, with the Gradovich, with the Lomachenko. I should put an asterisk by Gradovich because I think he's going to lose to Lee Selby next month. I would like to see how Terrence Crawford progresses.
Mm-hmm. There you go. There's very important.
If it can be made a possible fight with a Broner. I would like to see Andre Ward just fight and then eventually fight a Triple G or a Kovalev at 175. I like to see how Wilder progresses. Cotto and Canelo is good. They're good, but to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm not as excited about that fight as other fights out there. I don't know why. I'm just not. I'm more excited to see a Brook Khan because of the rivalry and the personal beef. I am more excited to see a Chocolatito fight a Estrada in a rematch because both are right now in their primes. And both guys are there. Both guys will fight at a high level of skill, or a Chocolatito because of Inoue. Because to me, Naoya Inoue, if you haven't seen him, please take the time out to go to YouTube and watch him. I think he's the most talented young fighter in the world, pound for pound. The way he destroyed Narvaez, the way he destroyed his name escapes me right now, to win the junior flyweight belt last year. I just think he's that good, and I wouldn't mind moving him up. A guy that doesn't get talked about much, that's really running under the radar unless you're a hardcore nut or nerd like myself. Zolane Tete, the way he destroyed Paul Butler, I didn't see that coming. There probably won't be any fights at 115 because some of the top guys, including Inoue, don't want to deal with a guy that tall and that long and deal with that reach. This is a real hardcore geeks thought here. I wouldn't mind seeing him move up to 118 and fight Yamanaka in Japan. So those fights right there, those are just a few fights I would look forward to happening towards the spring and the summer and later on this year. And as an aside, and I'm really just excited the fact that HBO signed a 4-fight deal with Gonzalez. I'm really excited about that, and I hope
putting him on the Golovkin undercard is a brilliant stroke.
And I hope that doesn't deter this proposed bout that was talked about between Gonzalez and Inoue that was rumored to happening in Japan at the end of the year. So that's just my few thoughts.
I think so. I think it'll happen. I'm going to add one more, and it's in play and it's not in play, is Frampton and Quick.
Yes, you're right.
Right now they're in an impasse, but the money's on the table, and some big money for those guys. And
Eddie Hearn just offered Frampton $1.5 million for that fight.
Pounds. Not dollars, pounds.
Pounds, yeah.
It's a little bit more, not much with the exchange rate these days. And he's hedging. So it's very interesting to see whether whether he's holding out for some particular amount of money or provisions for the fight or something. But that's a big fight for Britain and for all of us. I'd love to see it.
Any last words, Jeandra, before we begin to shut the show down?
No, just shamelessly plug in backculture.net. Tomorrow I'm going to go to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. media workout.
Don't put any tweets in
the Chavez Jr. media buffet tomorrow. So we'll see how much work is actually going to get done. And, visit backculture.net. And, if you're a runner, check out my new thing, hoodrunner.com. If you're a runner, road work, you like to get your road work on, check me out with that. Follow my Instagram.
Yeah, you kind of stole my thunder. I usually end the show by asking for folks if they want to check Talk Boxing or anything else, which you let them know where they can hit you. But again, get some further insight about backculture.net, about hoodrunner.com, and what you're doing with that.
Oh, Badculture.net, of course, boxing, primary content boxing, MMA content, odd news, the Ruckus podcast on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. with myself and Ryan Bivens, a.k.a. Mr. Sweet Boxing. Sometimes we do round tables. Some of your favorite fighters, some of your promoters you like, trainers, whatever. You never know what might go down on the Ruckus. We're a little bit off the chain over there. And then with hoodrunner.com, you know, born from my own fitness ambitions, transformations, and lifestyle. If you're an urban runner, you like to do your road workout in the streets. If you do it on a treadmill, if you like to walk, you like to jog, whatever it may be, if you like to do it in your urban landscape, then you are a hood runner. If you want to see, we've got hood runners popping up now in Belgium and France and Montreal and lots of different countries, lots of different places. Everybody out there, bottom line is get active, preserve your health, do your cardio. The site will be live April 15th. Support my Teespring, buy a Hood Runner t-shirt, and that is hoodrunner.com. Yay, Hood Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow her on Instagram. I follow her on Instagram. She has a lot of really good posts about her trails through the hood, running and whatnot.
The more hoods, the better.
Right.
Absolutely. Gayle, Falkenthal Communities Digital News. Folks who want to talk to you about boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Well, first of all, read my regular column in Communities Digital News. That's com with 2 M's, comdigi, D-I-G-I, news, comdiginews.com. That's where you can find me regularly. I write both for the fight freak as well as the semi-interested fan and hope to generate and create a whole new audience for boxing. That's what we're all about. It's welcoming everybody into the ring. And during a fight or any other time, if you want to talk boxing with me, the place to hit me is Twitter at PRPro San Diego. And especially during fights, we love to talk boxing when they're good, when they're bad, a lot like this program. And actually, we have much more fun when the fights really suck. You know, and we can have some conversation about it, and it's a lot of fun. So I'd love to see you there. And support Hood Runner. The gear is excellent. Excellent. Good looking stuff. If you're not so good looking, no problem. You'll be much better looking. You'll be much better looking wearing some Hood Runner.
Urban runners unite. Unite. I dream one day of having like a Hood Runner race in different countries or a National Hood Runner Day where everybody gets out, take their pictures, and post them on Instagram. If you want to see some of the other Hood Runners, they're popping up all over the place. Just check the Hood Runner hashtag on Instagram.
Gotta love it.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you, Jeandra. Thank you, Gayle, for joining me and being a part of this show. Our special women's episode, the Pound for Pound Box Report. There will be a part 2, hopefully for something this summer, and I hope to have more women join us. Raging Babe, holla at me. Also, I want to say, before we sign off, I want to say that this month, April, is Autism Awareness Month. There's a really good campaign by the Mocha Autism Network where they have a hashtag Royal Blue for Autism Awareness. They do that this summer. If you want to find out how to be a part of Royal Blue for Autism Awareness, just go to at Mocha Autism Network on Twitter, mochaautismnetwork.com, and they can show you, they'll give you a guide on how you can participate in Royal Blue for Autism Network. And on April 16th, I urge everybody to wear blue, Royal Blue, in support of autism awareness. So again, Royal Blue for Autism Awareness is the hashtag. Mocha Autism Network, that's the Twitter page, that's the site. Please be a part of Autism Awareness Month, happening this month, which is April. On the next episode, the Pound for Pound Box Report, we will do a recap of Garcia and Stevenson, as well as Andy Lee, Peter Quillen, and we will do, and we may also, we didn't talk about this tonight, but we may also do a recap of Orlando Salido. He's fighting Rocco Martinez, defending his junior lightweight title, and we will do a preview of, and if the fight happens in time, we may do some discussion about Shinzuki Yamanaka. As far as I'm concerned, the best bantamweight in the world. We will do a recap of that should the fight happen in time before the show began. It's happening the same day as the show. So we would do a recap of that, and we would do a preview as well of Ruslan Provodnikov fighting Lucas Matthysse, which looks to be a very promising fight.
Right.
Terrence Crawford, he's making his move to 140 pounds. He's fighting Tomas Delorme. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who we mentioned earlier, will be fighting Juan Flores. So we'll be doing a recap of the weekend bouts, Garcia, Peterson, and those bouts on that Saturday. And we will do a preview of the bouts that's happening on HBO. And the fight I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking to see how Terrence Crawford, how he looks at 140 pounds. I think he has real star potential. So again, I want to thank Jeandra LeBeauf of badculture.net and hoodrunner.com, and Gayle Falkenthal of Communities Digital News. I am Michael. This has been a special women's episode, all ladies episode, the Pound for Pound Box Report. The show will be up on YouTube fully in about a half hour or so from live, if you're watching us live. The podcast will be up later on tonight, if not early tomorrow. For Jeandra and her doll, her Michael Jackson doll, and her Billie Jean dog, as well as
Gayle, toys on my desk.
And as well as Gayle Falkenthal. There will be a part 2, and I want the ladies, I want you to be a part of that. And if you reach out to some other ladies to have them take part of the show as well. So for Jeandra, for Gayle, I am Michael. This has been a special episode of the Pound for Pound Box Report. You have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.